Hi everybody, it's Dr. Simon. We are in week 2. So I wanted to go over week 2's assignments and I wanted to review week 1's assignment so that everybody's on the same page. Currently, I am logged in to my Engage course and I'm in the 6315, the professional orientation. So in week 1, let me turn my editing off. In week 1, sorry as I scroll, you all had discussion boards that you did regarding the differences in graduate school students and undergraduate students. And so I've looked at each one of those. I've responded to some of the posts on the discussion board, and I've also sent each of you emails regarding your participation in the discussion board. So please make sure that you check your email within Engage so that you can see my feedback regarding your discussion board posts. And the feedback is just helping you to see what the expectations are for the discussion boards that we do within the program. And each of the courses, we have the same discussion board expectations regarding doing an initial post due on Tuesday and 2 peer responses due on Friday. You want to make sure that you are aware of the course rubric, and I think we talked about that in the video from last week, but we can go over that again as well so that you can see what that rubric looks like and know what those expectations are. So when you are responding to the discussion board post, please be aware that you have both an initial post prompt and you have a peer response prompt. And so we have 2 of those to help make sure that we are covering the material that we are required to based upon our accreditors and the curriculum that's there. So for example, you'll see here you have the instructions and it lets you know for the initial peer response, the initial discussion board, that you're going to discuss the differences that you expect to see as an online graduate student versus your experience as an undergraduate student. In the peer response, you also have a prompt. And your peer response, after you've read a response from your peer, you should be able to take the information that they have shared and help you answer this question as well. So in the peer response, what you should have done was discussed the value of being able to create self-care plans and how that will look when you enter the field of counseling. On Tuesday, for the initial post, you all may not have read the article by that Tuesday post, but by Friday you should have. So when you read the information that we included for the weekly reading assignments, you'll see the word self-care used throughout there. And so if your classmate or your peer was saying in their peer response, the differences between me being a grad student and an undergrad student is that I'm going to have better time management. And I'm going to have to make sure that I contact my professor. Well, those are actually ways for self-care, because if you're not very organized, it's going to cause anxiety. So being better organized is a part of a self-care plan. Having a set of resources like your professors or your family members to help you take care of some of the duties that you typically do or whatever, those are also parts of self-care plans. So as you read the course material, you should start being able to use the same type of terminology that we use within the counseling field. So in your post, you want to begin to use the same language that we're using as professional counselors. And you'll get that language and you'll get that vocabulary based upon the readings that you're doing and based upon the research that you're finding in the different articles. So you want to be able to start to talk and speak as someone who is entering into the counseling field. So that's why you'll see that this peer response now says self-care plans, because that's what we call it in the counseling profession. So now let's look at week 2. So for week 1, I didn't count off any points as long as you responded to the initial post and you did your 2 peer responses. I didn't count off any points in week 1. That's why I want you to go back and read the email that I sent that was directly towards you. So I sent individual emails so that each of you could see what areas you need to improve on so that you can correct that for week 2. So in week 2, In week 2, we're going to start talking about APA. So we have a counseling language that we use when we're speaking. And like I said last week, it was self-care. We also have a certain style that we write in within the counseling profession, and that style is APA. So you will be required to write using APA format. So for week 2, your initial discussion board prompt says we're going to begin discussing using the preferred writing method within the counseling field. In your initial post, please discuss the relevance of clear, concise, and properly formatted writing. So that is what your initial response is going to be. Also, you need to provide 2 examples. One example of a situation in which a poorly written email or a written document had a negative impact, and an example of a situation in which a well-written email or document helped to create a positive impact. So for those of you who are school teachers, if there was a newsletter that went out or an email that went out and it was written with poor grammar or poor instructions, what did that look like? Versus the other end where there was something that went out that gave you clear instructions. If you're not in the teaching field, you don't have to use a teaching example because this will probably be the last time that I ask you to reference your experience as a teacher, because what we want to begin to do is start thinking like a counselor and not as a teacher. So we don't want to use teaching language. We want to use counseling language. For the 2 peer responses, remember there is a separate prompt. So in response to your peers, so when you read a peer's response, their initial post, provide an example of how the writing skills that you will be using throughout the school counseling program may have helped to improve or clear up the misunderstandings from the negative impact that they provided. So, like I said, for my negative impact, if I would have said when I received an email from my supervisor that told me that I had a report that was due on Friday, and the report actually takes 3 weeks to do, but I was only notified 2 days before the deadline. Well, that was something that was negative because all of the instructions were not provided within the email so that I could get the job done. So, in my response to a peer, if a peer was responding to that prompt, then how could using the skills that you're going to learn within the school counseling program help to improve that? And so part of APA is making sure that we are using clear and concise language, that there is a format to it, that information is provided, dates are provided within APA format so that things are clear. And so you'll have your initial post, which is here, and you have a prompt for that. And then in your peer response, we help to guide what that peer response should look like. So that's how your discussion board goes. And let's look at the rubric. So here's your rubric. You'll see that you have your initial post rubric. There's a first reply post and a second reply post. If you only post an initial post, the highest grade you could possibly earn for that week is going to be a 60. You get 60 points for your initial, up to 20 points for your first reply, and up to 20 points for your second reply. Also, please be aware I sent out the announcement about the attendance policy. It is required in our graduate program that you are present and actively participating each week, and that participation and attendance is taken based upon the activities that you complete, and our activities each week are either discussion boards or voice thread. If you only complete an initial post, then that does not constitute 80% of the coursework for that week, which means you will be considered absent. So please make sure that you are providing those too. In addition to the discussion board prompt for this week, you also have a quiz. You have your APA checklist quiz. You get 2 attempts on this quiz. After you complete the quiz the first time, do not wait to get a grade from me. There is immediate feedback that is given after you submit the quiz that will help you, so you'll know what types of corrections that you need to make. And so you'll, as soon as you finish, you can move on to the next part. It does not provide an automatic grade. I won't provide that grade until after the due date. The due date is Friday at 11:59. And so on Saturday, I'll be able to go in and assess. That way I've made sure that everyone has had the opportunity to do both of their attempts. Please do not wait to see your grade posted to do your second attempt. Both attempts are due by next Friday at 11:59 p.m. In order to complete the quiz, you need to download both the APA example paper and the APA checklist form. This is what you're going to use in order to help you answer the questions that are on the quiz. They are asking questions that are directly related to this example paper. So it asks questions regarding where can you find a direct quote. I'm not asking for you to find a separate article. I want you to use an APA example paper, and this is what your papers will look like when you complete them for my course. This way you know exactly the settings that you need to do, the APA guidelines and rules that I'm looking for. So the running head and how it should be set up. In order to do a running head, this is part of the formatting. You can't just add your own. You actually have to go inside of your Word document options and tools and create a header. So please make sure that you're using the appropriate tools within Word. Because each person has a different I don't know which Word version you're working out of, or if you're using a Mac or a PC. I can't actually walk you through it because it's going to be different for many of you. So you can do a Google or YouTube search, and there's plenty of videos on YouTube that'll help you set this up correctly. So you'll have, this is what your paper should look like. You'll have your running head, abstract, and then your first page, always a title. Always make sure that you have the title of the paper, and on pages 2 through whatever, you don't have that title of running head anymore. You just have the title. A title for your paper, nice paragraphs where they're indented. You have to have headers. So if for my courses, since your papers aren't very long, you only need to have what's called a level 1 header. And so it's centered and bold every time with the capitalizations of each of the major words. So this is an example of what your papers should look like when you submit them. So before we get to that point, I just wanted you to run through to see what the format looks like and what it is I'm going to be checking for. The other thing that you'll need your reference page. So this is the example paper that you're going to use to actually answer the questions that are on the quiz. So make sure that you have that. Okay? If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm here to help and help you through the process. As you guys have posted throughout week 1, in order to be successful, it's about time management. It's just about making sure you have the right amount of time to get everything completed and structuring your schedule that way. As somebody mentioned, waiting to the last minute is not going to be very beneficial in the grad program. And if I had to give you any piece of advice, it would be that don't wait to the last minute. Make sure you're reading the instructions beforehand, even if you're not able to work on it today. Look at what the instructions are, and if you have questions, ask, and that gives us as instructors an opportunity to get back with you. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you soon.